Hi, my name's Danny Whittle. I'm the Executive Director and Programmer for Chinois, which is a club that's been open now this is our 5th year. Prior to that, I was the head programmer of Pasha for about 14 years. And I'm also one of the founder owners of the International Music Summit, which takes place in Ibiza for about the last 17 years. I mean, it's a small space, you've seen it. We've got, beautiful upstairs terrace. We've got another beautiful little garden area at the front, which is part of the VIP entrance, or friends and family entrance, we call it. I think friends and family sounds so much nicer than VIP. And then the club is, it's basically a cube that sonically works really well. I mean, if you ask most DJs who've played here, they'll tell you it's probably with the best sound system on the island. And we are trying to give it that sonic temple feel. I mean, we really want it to be about the sound. Well, I think anybody who's going to a nightclub who hasn't got that on top of the list probably doesn't understand nightclubbing. I remember Ministry of Sound back in the day. It was all about Ministry of sound system. Everybody went there for the sound system. The same with Stereo Montreal, the same with, many of the clubs in New York and so on. If you're there to dance, you want the sound. You're not bothered about the lasers, really. Ultimately, what we try to do here is very much still embrace the locals. I think it's very easy to just concentrate on tourism. And we really still believe that we need locals in the club. We open April the 2nd and we close November the 1st, so we're open way earlier and way later than any other club on Ibiza. The reason for that is we want the locals to feel that this is their venue and they're always welcome to come. We don't limit our guest list at all. I mean, other than capacity, we're very happy to put locals on a guest list and get them into the club and try and keep the price as reasonable as possible. And I think that's the authenticity of Ibiza. I think the problem is, if you go too much down the road of Vegas, where it's all about the money, it's all about collecting on the door and the bars and the drinks and the champagne and the VIP, I think at that point you start to lose the authenticity. That doesn't mean we don't provide that VIP service, because some people want that, that's okay. But it shouldn't take over the entire club, and that's why we try to keep some authenticity. Yeah, we're very active with regards to making sure people get looked after. And like I say, the staff tend to know so many people. A lot of the times you could rock up here, if you know our door staff and they know you don't even need to be on the guest list. If the club isn't full, they're going to say, come on, come in, it's okay. I don't see us ever being anything other than really friendly with our community and our locals. There's just not enough money in it with 1,500 people for us to change our approach. We're still growing, but at the same time, I don't see us becoming greedy ever. So I think we'll always have that vibe. Unfortunately, I think worldwide, the authenticity of house music and the rave scene has changed. I mean, I got into rave when basically nobody was making any money out of it. The late 80s, early 90s. It was the punk of that era, I suppose. And now, I know via the International Music Summit, when we do a business report, that, it's a $12, $13 billion a year industry. And it never used to be. So, I mean, to get to those levels, you're always going to lose some authenticity, But at the same time, we understand that it's grown as an industry. So what it's also doing, of this double-edged sword, is that we're supplying jobs for people to come into the industry. I mean, this is not just about DJs and promoters, it's marketeers, it's design, it's many things, it's food and beverage and so on. So, we've got reason to be very proud of our industry, but at the same time, it's very difficult to hang on to that really authentic thing, which was basically a bunch of kids having a rave on a motorway service station. But I think we try and do our best to keep the feeling of house music alive. The problem is with some of the other clubs, their budgets are so high. They've got the level of DJ that you're talking of 150, 200,000 plus a gig. They need to hit targets. So obviously sometimes their guest list is going to be tight because they want people to pay. The thing is with us, we don't need to do that. So what we're working with is a lot of upcoming, really cool DJs that are just coming, really growing into the scene now. And because of that, it means that our budgets are reasonably low, which means that we can be a little bit freer and a little bit more accessible on the dance floor. It's very much about the quality and really not so much about the money. And a lot of that's down to Sid and Sophia as owners. They're they're much more interested in the quality than the quantity. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how busy your VIP is or isn't. If your dance floor's not busy, nothing's going to be busy. So our priority is that we make sure the dance floor is super vibey, super busy. There's nothing sadder than a half-empty nightclub, so we try our best to make sure the dance floor's jumping. Ibiza can't just be all high-end, because if you forget about the 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, that's when they come to Ibiza and fall in love with it. And Ibiza has this amazing return of service, like probably better than anywhere else in the world. So the issue is, if you don't make it accessible as an island, not just as a nightclub, then ultimately they're going to go somewhere else and maybe they fall in love with that place. So I think the island has to be as accessible as the nightclubs.
I found a quote. It could have been you, it could have been someone else. If other clubs are supermarkets...
That was definitely me. I think the other clubs are like supermarkets and we're a delicatessen. I'm not saying which one's Lidl. And I'm not disrespecting any of the clubs. I know all the clubs personally. I know all the owners and the guys that run them, and they have my deepest admiration. I know what it's like to run a club for 5,000 people. It's very, very difficult, Just the scale of what they're doing is really the point of it, that they need 5,000, 6,000 people, whatever, and I need 1,500. So, not only does it allow us to be more creative, but, certainly with regards to the new talent coming forward and so on, but it also means that we're not having these massive budgets that, again, makes you stay awake at night. It certainly did for me when I was in Pasha. But in general, I think that's the difference. You go into a delicatessen and you're picking very nice, high quality, very considered foods and so on, and where a supermarket you tend to run around with a big basket, right, just filling it up. We've got I think the only gay night left on the island, which is La Troya. It's been on Ibiza for about 30 years, and again, there's this amazing thing about the gay scene that it used to be very, very separate, right? Because they needed a safe space. So it was very flamboyant. The whole street of Calle de Virgin in the town, it was a gay street, basically. And it was amazing. It was like a big parade and like just great to go visit. But it's not so strong anymore. And the reason for that is because, thank God, gays could feel welcome anywhere. So they can go wherever they want. They don't need a safe space. They're literally safe anywhere, which is amazing. But at the same time, you've lost that little bit of flamboyancy. So we love the fact that we do have a gay night because it's pretty much the only one on the island these days. We're not into gimmicks. We're not into big flashy things and loads of this, sort of dressing, whatever. That doesn't really bother us at all. It's more about you have a really good understanding of music and you want a really particular sound that makes this club absolutely sing. The rest really is a byproduct for us. It doesn't really matter. It's very much about the sound and the vibe as people, as individuals. Do you get on? There's no need for anybody to have an ego, so we don't work very well with egos. The old artists that we work with is about a respect and a homage and giving them a platform to play, tipping your caps sort of to the history of Ibiza. There's a balance there. We've got an amazing young girl DJ like Delilah or somebody coming through, or Jazzy or whatever. They're early 20s and not been in the game long, but you can see they're going to fly. But then at the same time, you have Todd Terry playing, who is one of the best DJs on the planet. And he reminds me of Pasha 20 years ago, but he still comes in here and absolutely slams it, And sometimes we put people like that back to back. Put a 21-year-old DJ with a 50-year-old DJ, but they play amazing house music and they inspire each other, and that's what we try and do really. It's respecting the history of Ibiza, but respecting the history of house music in general. I think that we can't gentrify all of Ibiza. I'm a massive fan of San Antonio. San Antonio for me has been and always should be the gateway. When you're coming over here, you're 17, 18, 19 years old, you want a reasonably priced hotel, reasonably priced bars, whatever. And that's always been San Antonio. And then what happens is generally people, they come to Ibiza, they enjoy San Antonio. During the trip, they find Ibiza town, or they find Playa d'Embossa, or they find Santa Eulalia. And then maybe the next year they stay in one of those places and they go like that. And then 5 years deep, when they fell in love with the whole place, they've suddenly now got a credit card and they are booking the VIP table in Pacha because now they can afford it. But they wouldn't be there if they hadn't come through that gateway, which is San Antonio. And I just think we have to be careful that we don't over-gentrify the entire island. I think we have to embrace the kids, we have to embrace the youth and make it very accessible for them.